Okay, first I'm gonna say all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Al Shah, Bashim Kakadash. The Davans of Basas and teach you great middle song, crown learning the truth, how to say Shalom to the whole collective Israel. This is inspired by a video I saw with one of the brothers in the camp. Going into this whole Elon Musk and its Neuralink brain chip, which is toted, if that's the right word, to be able to do things such as, give your sight back. I've seen things where people could use this thing to interact with computers and machines. There's actually one used on a monkey that allowed them to pretty much the computer to display his thoughts and words, to where you could understand it. Saw it a little while ago. But things like giving people sight back, allowing people's brains to interface with prosthetic legs and robotic arms. Not just prosthetics, but actually like robotic prosthetics. Machines, arms that there's the whole and this was actually featured in a movie called Bloodshot, where, if you don't know about the movie, Vin Diesel starred in it. He was a soldier that got killed, and essentially nanomachines was put into him to revive him and bring him back to life and give him supernatural abilities. Sped up healing, super strength, super speed. You could see through walls and shit like that, infrared vision. But there's one guy in there that had the use of robotic, machine robotic arms, and he had this I know he had chips in his head, but there's also like this thing that attached to his spinal column that connected, those robotic arms to the different neurons and electrical pulses that were sent through his spinal cord, because like all your functions go from your brain down to your spinal cord and it travels all through your body. But the chips would be able to do shit like that. And I think I've seen something where the chip, where a guy actually had control of robotic arms via a chip, that communicated all those different impulses and pulses throughout the body. But that's the type of shit that is told with this technology, and especially with that microchip. But I have the word or the term Trojan Horse here for those of you who saw Troy, and this is something that he mentioned. And there's a couple scriptures I want to get. One of them is going to how his words are smoother than oil, but war was in his heart. He's a cunning man of the field, referring to how cunning and how much of a trickster the so-called white man is. And why do I bring this? I'm going to read this. I'm driving right now. Let me see. That night, armed Greeks swarmed out and captured and burnt the city. A Trojan horse is thus anything that looks innocent, but once accepted has power to harm or destroy. And this whole thing looks like a good, wholesome, like they're trying to help. In the scriptures refer to Esau as a cunning serpent is the most cunning beast of the field. And Esau's a man of, I think it says that he's a man of the field. He's a good hunter. If you don't know anything about hunting animals, setting up traps, having to wait for extended periods of time, pick and choose your moments to strike like a snake at certain vital points. But it says anything. A Trojan horse is anything that looks innocent. And once again, going to Esau's whole humanitarian thing, wanting to help people. Mind you, something I want to mention is that there's a lot of rich people that talk about how if you want to become rich, you have to do something that essentially, I remember hearing this a long time ago, that essentially helps people, that genuinely helps people. And the reason why I mention that, because the so-called white man didn't create all these things just to help people. He created it because, all these different inventions are cash cows. If you see For example, Amazon, you know, using that whole online market, right? You know, it's a place for people to get different things and to sell different things. A whole ton of shit that goes on in there. Um, that was. Does it help people? Yes. Does it, get people their shit? You know, that they may not be able to have gotten otherwise from other places, lower prices, discounts. Yes, but at the same time, that is a great money making opportunity. These so-called humanitarian niggas, they don't do this to help you people. They do this for their benefit, solely for their benefit. I just wanted to point that out because once again, some of the greatest people that in Esau's world are people that have contributed the most to humanity, and as a result, they've reaped very generous rewards from that. New inventions. So, I just want to point that out there. It's not everybody, but most of these niggas who created these great things, they created these things in mind with either achieving a dream or reaping benefits. So they don't do this to help you fuckers. They don't care about you fuckers. Just to clarify that. And I say that why? Because going to this whole chip, people think that this nigga Elon Musk is trying to help you. No, he's not. He doesn't give a fuck about any of you. None of these niggas do. But going into this, it says how anything that looks innocent but once accepted has power to harm or destroy. And when you go into what the so-called going to the Georgia Guidestones, which is recently taken down because of they're growing attention surrounding it. It essentially outlines a little bit of their plan to take over the world, and and to cement their rule by being in. When you go into Yahweh Shema Shah, he knows every spirit. He knows everything about you. He knows the next move you're gonna make. He knows your breaths. The so-called white man wants to try to emulate that in the best way he can. For example, eyes of the Lord are in every place, behold the good and the evil. What do you have everywhere? Microphones, speakers in your phones, cameras everywhere. So-called white man wants to be God. And now there's a scripture that talks about how I will be like the Most High. And when you go into super soldiers, right? What do those emulate? Spiritual power. There's Isaiah 14:14. 13, for thou said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne. And that's what this is going into. And that's why we push so much not to accept that microchip. Because when you go into that's the ultimate form of spiritual adultery, that's you saying that so-called white man is your God. And that's the ultimate form of spiritual adultery. For thou said in thine heart, because you already have a God. And you taking that chip, that's to put it in a more worldly term, that's your woman spreading her legs for another man. Because the meaning behind that chip is for Esau to be inside of you and to be in control of you, and to that's how he's going to cement his rulership and his dominance over you people. Because he doesn't have full control over everybody yet. That chip is how he's going to do it. For thou said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And that's how Esau thinks. He wants to be God. He has lofty goals. This whole payment thing is being pushed as something that's great and convenient for you. But once again, like that Trojan horse, it's not to you. None of this is to you people's betterment. It's all a means to an end. Now, if it benefits a few people in the way, then so be it. But it's all a means to the end. That's how, once again, you people need to understand that the niggas who rule your society don't think like you. And you don't think like them. You're all peasants on consumers. So you think as such. You go to you go to your McDonald's, you go to your grocery stores. You're not thinking, the deeper meaning behind certain things are created. Sometimes there is no deeper meaning, but in this case, there is. And we're not the only ones saying this. You have whistleblowers, people that were on the inside, but they're exposing certain shit that they know that's going on the inside, say this exact same fucking thing. So it's not a conspiracy theory. We didn't just happen to say the same fucking thing. That's not a coincidence. We didn't just get together and, start, coming up with conspiracy theories and shit. Why the fuck? A chief example, Georgia Guidestones. What the fuck does that mean? If this is just a conspiracy theory. When you actually read that shit, it talks about depopulation and culling the population and controlling it. What the fuck is that about? And what? Those Abraham Lincoln niggas believe that you all should bow down to them. They say this. Most of these, most all these different, companies and stores are owned by a couple larger companies and stores. You can trace a lot of this back to a few what's that term? A few oligarchs that control most of this shit. That's not a coincidence. Too much shit is a so-called coincidence for it to be actual coincidences. Ecclesiastes 12:10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. Like how rust grows on iron, his wickedness grows. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed, beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped the looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not altogether been wiped away. He'll put on the suit and try to look like a good person. He'll pretend as if he isn't racist. There's nothing wrong with racism. When you go into the actual word racism, it means racist. You race, your people, and I think it's the suffix means to support, essentially. There's another word that's used, but it's synonymous with support. I mean, what? Oh, I think it says for your own race. That's all racism means. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with putting your people first. That's how it's supposed to be. But in the manner in which he means to destroy everybody, that hasn't changed. He's still the same bloody nigga. He just put on the suit and, he put on a little mask. He's just been restraining himself. He's still doing shit, covertly. Just not out in the open yet. But, Esau hasn't fucking changed. From the garden, down to Cain, down to Esau, from his descendants on to now, he's been shedding blood from the start. He hasn't changed. Even when you go back into when we came out of Egypt and we tried to pass through his land. He said, hey, we just want to come through. We're not going to take anything. We're not even going to drink any water from your rivers or your land. You don't know what that nigga said? Fuck that. Not only did he attack us, but he attacked the elderly at the back first. He attacked the weak first. And the nigga hasn't changed. One of the brothers talked about how in the fight, our people versus Esau's people. Right now, in the condition that we're essentially down for the count. Yet this nigga keeps stomping our people's heads in, and he won't stop. He said the fight's already over. The white flag has been waved. The bell has been fucking rung. Yet this nigga, the match is over. Everybody's already left the stands. This nigga still stomping our heads in. And that scripture talk about how he smote the people with a continual stroke. This nigga won't stop killing. Once again, covertly and even overtly. But going back into that whole brain chip thing, what that's him wanting to cement his dominance and 100% control over the people. You know, because there are still people that can talk against him. You know, with the whole credit social score system. Um, you do something he don't like, he turns your chip off, and you lose access to all your shit. But if you obey, you keep access, and you may you get your little benefits and whatnot. But that's an even greater level of control over the people. That's what he wants, because the Lord can do the same thing. He doesn't like you. He can escort your. He can free your spirit. He can escort your spirit back to your spirit realm at any time, however he wants. And when you go into paralleling that with the so-called white man, he's trying to emulate that. So I'm going to go back to this term Trojan Horse, because it says it's anything that looks innocent. And that chip is looking mighty innocent. It's looking like it's just there to make your life easier. But there's an ulterior motive behind that thing. Just like with this Trojan horse, If I remember correctly, it was presented as a gift. But we saw that, you saw that movie, we all saw that movie, Troy. What happened? I think it was the same night I think it was escorted during the day, but it says here, even that night, that night, that fucking city burned when they accepted that thing. And it's the same thing that's going to happen to you people. As soon as you accept it, as soon as you accept that chip, that's especially for you Israelites, that's it. And once again, there are other people that are outside of the truth that are saying this exact same thing. That give names, that give even a greater amount of detail. Was that guy Aaron Russo? They mentioned the same thing of how he talked with one of the Rockefellers or Rothschilds, and he mentioned how when you own everything, when you have all the women you want, when you have all the money in the world, when you have all the power, what's the one thing, you get bored. But there's, even with all that power and all that money and all that sway, there's one thing they didn't have: complete control over the people. And that's the last thing that they have, that they don't want, that they don't have, that they're trying to get. And it's all over where you have something called impulse buying, right? Which you see at your stores and whatnot. I actually notice this one store I go to. I take notice of shit like this. How there's certain, when you go up to a cash register and whatnot, you may be going through a store, and if you ever work for a store, there's food and certain popular things that are placed in certain areas. For example, the cash register, right? You may have energy drinks or candy bars placed up there, maybe gum, small little snacks and, convenient things like that. That are put in certain places that will trigger, that mechanism. Oh, this is right here, I might as well reach for it. It's a candy bar, I can reach for this, munch on it. Certain things are placed in areas in stores that trigger certain mechanisms within the brain that, I wouldn't say force, but persuade you to, to pay for things. And then when you go into the psychology of selling, right? There's, there's meaning behind all this shit. Selling is actually, it's an art form, and there's psychology behind persuading people to do it, or to buy your product. By providing certain benefits of how this is going to benefit you. But once again, I say all that why to go back into it's all this same thing with the chip. Like what McDonald's, fast food, delicious, deadly. They don't tell you that part though. But the colors will incite hunger in you. Scriptures talk about how a serpent was cunning beast of the field, and I think wisest maybe mentioned that somewhere, but definitely cunning. He's a crafty individual. And he knows what he's doing. These things aren't done without reason. But hope it's edifying. So y'all praise this glory, none to Yahweh, Shema Shah, Bashim Gakadash, the Bonsa Apostle and teacher, great millstone, probably in the truth, Shawan. So hopefully it's an instruction bell on Great America.